WBRC Fox 6 Law Call.
And welcome back in this evening. Before we head back to the phone lines, let's take a look at a viewer email. Tonight it comes from Rita, and here is her question. She says, I was involved in a car wreck while I was running errands for my boss. I was injured and I need physical therapy. Now my boss told me that I would need to cover those expenses through the company's health insurance or find somewhere else to work. I've since learned that he's cutting corners on a lot of other employee benefits. What exactly can I do in this situation? Gentlemen, how would you respond to Rita tonight?
What I would say is this. It looks like your boss is, if you do have health insurance, he's telling you the right thing to do, because as soon as someone gets injured in an accident, the other party doesn't immediately start paying for medical expenses and things like that. That has to go through your own health insurance. And then what happens is your employer or your employer's health insurance carrier gets paid back. It's called subrogation. Gets paid back the money that it put out because someone else caused an injury. Okay, so your employer in that scenario is telling you the right thing to do, which is go ahead and give your insurance card to whoever it is that you get treatment from, physical therapy or an MRI or something like that. Now, on the other side of things, this caller or this emailer just touched on what we're talking about. If your boss is cutting corners on certain things, well, you know, a lot of times employers can cut corners on a lot of things and they not be actionable. But if your boss is cutting corners and somehow defrauding the government, or if they're in a situation where they're frauding another company or something like that, those are all actionable as well, but it wouldn't be what we're talking about tonight. The basic premise is if you see something that's not right, you know, don't be part of it. Don't continue to perpetuate it just because you think that's your job. And there are certain things that lawyers can do to protect you in that situation. And Don, I wanted to ask you that question. If we're talking about a situation where somebody is working for an employer, sees something that is just not just smells bad, but sees that this is just wrong. They're stealing from the government. What should that person do? What can that person do? Can that person tip somebody off anonymously? Can that person take a greater step? Is there going to be retaliation against that person?
Those are all great questions, and they're all part of a conversation that I like to have with a whistleblower. They really need to get legal counsel. The law requires them to hire a lawyer to file a False Claims Act case. You cannot file it on your own. Right. And so when I'm talking to a potential whistleblower, I'm wearing two hats: attorney that's thinking, how do I file this claim, and counselor. This is somebody's life. Okay,
sure.
They got to make a very serious decision. They may get barred from the industry.
Right.
Well, let's talk about how much money is involved. Is it worth your time and effort to get involved? Is it enough the government's going to be interested? Are you already being retaliated against? Tell us what's happening there. Let's talk about what the retaliation damages are and what the protections are for you. And then after we go through all of that, let's make an informed decision. Just this last week, I talked to a young lady. It's clear fraud on the government. She's clearly retaliated against. We spent about an hour on the phone, but right now, the damages to the federal government are not enough, and the damages from her termination, because it just happened, are not enough at this time to go forward and file a lawsuit. But that's part of our job as lawyers, to counsel people through that.
So does the government have to come on board on your case?
No, they don't. The False Claims Act allows the person who filed the case, if the government investigates and declines to intervene, to go forward without the government. Now, at that point, when the government declines, I try to have good relationships with the assistant U.S. attorneys and find out why. And if it's for something we think we can overcome, we talk client, lawyer together and make the decision, let's go forward. If we listen to what the government's reasons were for declining, you know, we make the decision to dismiss the case. We don't want to go forward with that. But the number of cases out there are just astronomical. We were talking at the break, there's been a $1 trillion $200 billion spent on the infrastructure package. And just an everyday run-of-the-mill case, think about it. When the federal government spends money on federal road projects, bridges, think of the shovel-ready jobs, right? You're required under federal law to use American workers and pay the prevailing wage. One of the most common schemes is to use undocumented workers, pay less than the prevailing wage. And very often people who are not getting the jobs, that should be getting the jobs, have knowledge of what's going on. And if they can gather that information and come forward with a whistleblower attorney and present that information to the government loves to prosecute those cases. And we've seen them here in Alabama and all over the country.
I've heard about, like over the years, I've heard about the $100 hammer.
Yeah.
Is that,
Well, that-
sometimes what we're talking about?
Absolutely. Things get marked up. Specifications get put in contracts that were a result of collusion in the bidding process. And if somebody's got knowledge of that collusion in the bidding process, they can come forward and blow the whistle on that as well.
Wow. Well, this is just fascinating. Thank you so much for this information. If you would like more information on this very topic that we're discussing tonight, you can go to deliveringjustice.com or you can go to WBRC.com and click on the